want to talk about a decommitment. That's right, a little bit of high school recruiting talking about today. Utah saw wide receiver Tavian McNair decommit for them recently, a 6'2", 180-pound receiver. He was a 3-star recruit out of Centennial High School in California, the 92nd ranked receiver in the country, the 55th overall player in the state of California. And he had several other offers. And look, he's not going to be coming to Salt Lake City. I think some people will be like, well, what happened behind the scenes? I think the truth is, so often players choose a place because of the coach relationship. Alvis Whitted is no longer at Utah. And I think in large part because of that, and he said that in his statement, he thanked the coaches and Coach Whitted who recruited him and then said, I'm going to be, pursuing my commitment others. So I dial this one down more to that. Could Utah's lackluster passing game absolutely play a role in this? Yeah, but I said, Alex, so often players choose a place because of the coach. They don't go just because it's like, oh, I love this program. Especially a guy McNair from California. So I really boil it down to that rather than like, oh, a bigger problem with Utah.
Absolutely. And I think the timing has a lot to do with everything. Had this decommitment happened before National Signing Day, or even before the news was released that Alvis Whitted was no longer going to be with the part of the program, that's a different conversation. But the fact that it happened after National Signing Day, and it happened after the fact that the news was that it was announced that Whitted was no longer going to be a part of the program, that makes sense, right? It seemed like he wanted to come specifically. It's possible he could have wanted to come specifically for one of these specific coaches. That specific coach is obviously no longer with the program. And so because of the timing and because of how everything that happens, it leads you to believe that this was potentially I wanted to come play for this guy. He's no longer there. My recruitment is now open type deal.
Yeah, and even if it was because, hey, Utah's passing offense wasn't good, Utah has addressed that issue by making a change at offensive coordinator with Jason Beck being hired, and they've already brought in several receivers through the portal, added a few guys through the portal. Obviously, the most recent one coming from Wyoming, but then you also get a guy from New Mexico coming on. You got the guy from Mississippi State, not mentioning Darren Zipper and Zacharias Williams, both of whom contributed, and I expect to make a couple plays next year. So Utah's already made strides to upgrade their passing attack. But not all of those strides have been successful because Utah also tried to add a couple of transfer portal receivers. I think the most disappointing one that we saw Utah miss out on was Omega Blake. This is a guy I was really excited about coming over from Charlotte, had great intangibles, 795 yards, 9 touchdowns, and just good height, size, speed for the position. So seeing him go to Arkansas obviously hurt a little bit too. Carlos Hernandez is another guy. Steve Bartle had a great report out talking about the visits that Utah was trying to have a couple other guys up to campus recently. And they did have Hernandez out to visit. He had some production with the Cougars, but he's going to follow his coach, Jake Dickert, out to Washington State. Then you look at another guy too, who, yes, Desmond James, Utah's still in the running on, but he already visited Utah, and now he's got Mississippi State and Cal coming up later this week. Steve Bartle reports in the story on KSL Sports, so that I'm concerned about Utah's ability to land him there. And then you have Sterling Buckleter, who ended up committing to Wake Forest too. So Utah still missed out on some receivers. Overall, I feel good about the receiver room, especially, Alex, if Dorian Singer can come back. But getting a guy like Otto Tia in here is big. The focus of this offense is going to be the running game. Would I love to have an elite receiving core? Yes, but I feel like there are several guys capable of stepping up who did produce last year that I'm optimistic about this Utah receiving core. I don't know if there will be a guy as good as Dorian Singer was, but I think the overall depth, they will be better and just more well-rounded this year.
Absolutely. There's a lot to be optimistic about, but I think until a ball is snapped, until we see the offense go out there for the first time in August, I think there's still going to be questions of at the wide receiver room, right?
Yeah.
Because you lost a lot of players in as far as the wide receiver room goes. Mm-hmm. There's still the limbo about Dorian Singer, but if he can't come back, obviously he's a senior. He's going to have to move on if he can't come back. Money Parks, another senior. There's a lot of upperclassmen and more experienced players in the wide receiver room that will not be back for Utah next season for one reason or another. Otto Tia, Justin Stevenson, a couple of the other pickups through the transfer portal, Creed Whittemore. I think they have the skill sets to be successful. However, that question will still remain: is how good is the depth going to be at wide receiver? And I think right now where we stand, that's probably the place I have the most questions about. You obviously pick up some good commitments in the quarterback room with Devin Dampier coming over from New Mexico, Wayshawn Parker, and Rodgers look to be solid running backs. So those I'm not concerned about. The concern for me is at that wide receiver position. So when I hear that, there's a couple of these guys, like the guy from Washington State, who decide not to commit to Utah, that just kind of opens that question up for me more, is how is this wide receiver room going to look next season for the Utes?
Yeah, if Dorian Singer can't come back right now, I'm going to go with Otto T as the number one. I think Davis, the New Mexico receiver, he'll be your number two guy in the slot. And then I look at Darren Zipper or Zacharias Williams, but that's without also mentioning the player you just had from Wyoming, Stevenson, as well as the receiver from Mississippi State. So I like that there are some competitive guys in here that can make plays. We are banking on upside. Outside of Tia and Davis, no one has really produced at a high level. Even Stevenson, its potential. Zacharias Williams, Zipper, each kind of only had moments or a game on the year. So who's going to step up? Who's going to emerge on the outside? That's a big question for Utah. And I am excited to see. We talked about Landon King a little earlier. I think he's going to play a big part in this passing game too. So excited to see what Jason Beck's offense looks like in 2025.